You are now listening to the I Think I Love My Wife podcast. And this is your best friend's best friend, Chidozie Okafor, ready to take you on another journey. Are you with me? Because I'm ready. Let's get it. This episode is sponsored by Nello Effect, a coaching and consulting service that helps people turn mindfulness into action as they navigate the dating world as well as their relationships. Follow on Instagram at nello.effect and find more information in the episode description. Today we talk about meeting bae on the apps, going from a casual dating situation to becoming a serious one and then getting married. And we also talk through the process and journey of dating and marrying a woman with a child. Hey, what's going on, people? This is your boy Chidozie, here for another episode of I Think I Love My Wife, and I have a good friend with me, Courtney. Say what's up, Courtney.
What's going on, man? Good to see you.
What's going on, man? Good to see you too. It's been a minute. It's been a good minute. I was trying to figure out the last time I seen you, but it's probably been like 5 years, maybe.
You know what? It'll probably come up today because that actually might be relevant.
Yeah. And so, you're right. And so, I was thinking about it. And so I'm happy to have you on here with this whole COVID. It's allowed me and forced me probably sooner than I was ready to venture out of like my local network because I had to do stuff digitally. So I'm happy to have you. I think you have a great story, and I think there are a lot of lessons you've learned and experiences you've had that will help people as they're trying to navigate not only the dating world but also like marriage. And so before we start, like every episode, I always like to cheers it. And this toast, man, I just want to cheers to like having good people in your life, people that you may not always see all the time, but always feel close to. Because I think those people are super important. So cheers to you, man.
Most def, man. Back at you.
What you sipping on?
So today I got some Bro Brothers Bourbon, which is a black-owned bourbon brand from Kentucky.
Oh, nice. We're going to have to make them a sponsor or something.
Yeah,
I've been drinking, I usually drink dark, but since Austin, I've been drinking tequila a lot more. And so anybody that knows me now knows that I've been sipping on this one particular brand called Abandonado, basically like abandoned with ado at the end of it.
Okay.
It doesn't look like anything fancy, but it is a higher quality bottle. And it is smooth. Like the Blanco Silver is smooth, man.
So I need you to send me that link because...
Yeah, I'll send it to you because it is dangerous.
I predominantly drink tequila, and I was like, well, do I want to go with the tequila today? No, we're going to go with the black business.
It's out in Texas, or at least in Dallas, I only can find it at... we got like a chain called Specs. But so it might be hard to find. You might have to order it. But anyway, let's get started. Yeah, so how long have you known your wife?
Going on 6 years, man.
God, time flies, man.
Yes.
I remember y'all met. Okay. How long were you guys talking before you made it official?
In terms of official, like boyfriend, girlfriend?
Yeah, like official relationship.
Yeah, that's probably 7 to 9 months.
So y'all were just like hanging out, talking, going on dates?
So the interesting thing there is, we did not start off with the intention of being in a relationship. It was a covenant season, and things evolved.
Oh, okay. Well, those are always beautiful.
It's like,
y'all had an understanding.
Yeah,
this is
unexpected
cool.
right here. Okay.
Got more than you bargained for.
Yes, indeed. And life comes at you fast sometimes.
What they say, look at God. Wasn't ready. Okay, so y'all dated for about 9 months. I mean, y'all talked for 9 months, became official. How long were y'all together officially before you proposed?
Before I proposed, that would have been, I'm doing the math in my head real quick, about 2 years officially as an item.
And then, so y'all been married for like 3?
No, so we're coming up on 2. It'll be 2 this September.
Gotcha. Okay. And what do you do for a living?
So I work in marketing, packaging.
Okay. And what does your wife do?
She works in supply chain.
Nice. And so I always like to, just for context purposes, get an understanding of how people grew up, because I think that's also very critical when we think about people's perspective in dating and marriage and relationship. And so for you, from a parental standpoint, what was the household looking like?
Yeah, so originally from Chicago. Came up in a traditional 2-parent household. Fortunately, my parents, I was talking to my dad about this the other day, actually, are at 47 years of marriage.
Oh, blessings, man.
Yeah, it'll be 50 years in 2024 because they got married in 74. So that definitely has shaped, my perspective and viewpoints on lots of things. Came up with me and I got a younger brother. They're still in Chicago, but the balance of my family is down south in Tennessee. So I think another thing that I've always sort of been able to balance is that, city living and way of, operating in a family structure versus knowing how, quote unquote, my country cousins and aunts and uncles operate too.
Gotcha. So both parents, they've been at it for a minute, and you have a younger brother, correct?
Correct.
Gotcha. And what about your wife? How was her kind of upbringing with parents and siblings?
So her parents are separated, but they got separated when she was a teenager. She is the youngest of 3. She's from Ohio, so her whole family's here in the state. And she has good relationships with both her mom and her dad. And yeah, as the youngest of 3 siblings, she's got 2 sisters. That's always a little interesting.
I can imagine. I was about to say, when you don't, I think this is the blessing of a balance is good. When you can see both perspectives. When you have a brother and a sister, you have both parents, and so I was just gonna I can only imagine just all 3 girls and not having a male figure, whether it's a little brother or older brother, how that impacts how you see the world and the opposite sex. And even on the flip side, like a guy that grows up with only brothers and their mom might be their only female, or if she's not around, how that impacts how you see the world,
Yeah, her family doesn't really there's not a lot of males, period, right? When I even think of her sister's kids, it's one boy in the entire family in that regard.
Oh man.
So
interesting.
But yeah, we might get into that a little bit because of how that frames my wife's perspective a lot of times on family, given some of the things that she went through coming up with parents.
Yeah, let's definitely hold that thought. And want to make sure if I forget, we come back to that. And okay. So, let's get to the good stuff in terms of just, the lovey-dovey. What do you love about your wife?
Oh man, where do I start? Right. That's the first thing you're supposed to say. I love her sense of humor, balanced with her degree of sarcasm. I think we're very witty in this household. Equally love her determination. When she puts her mind to something, she will see it all the way through and she is determined to get something done. Additionally, I love her resiliency, just from hearing about some of her experiences before we met and then just seeing how she reacts to things to get stuff done. It's been a blessing to watch, as well as I think a willingness to try things, right? Something that I really appreciated when we first started meeting is just her general curiosity and wanting to do stuff and travel different places and just try different things, which can sometimes be like a breath of fresh air.
Nice. This could sound like the same question, but there's a nuance to it.
Okay.
What would you say makes her special to you?
Ooh. I think 2 things. First is she is a woman first, mom second. And I think that nature of hey, I know I have a child, but I have my own aspirations and things I want to do. And then second, I'd say is probably her loyalty to everybody around her. And again, coming in, seeing that and how that has played out with her and her daughter, my stepdaughter, it was something that turned me on and saw, oh, this is what my life could be like with this person.
Yeah. And you, I don't even know what you said, but it triggered a thought that I've never asked. I don't think I've ever asked it on the podcast yet. So you'll be the first. I'm going to incorporate it in my questions moving forward. Is she older or are you older?
Same age, but I got her by several months.
Okay, cool. I just think that nuance, it's always good to understand that where people are in their lives and the age difference too. I never thought to ask that until now. So y'all are the same age. Good to know. One of my favorite questions is, when did it hit you? The moment where you were like, I think I love this woman.
Ooh, I think that was probably like 6 months ish in, and ironically, no, I know exactly what it was. It was around the time for a birthday party of mine, and it was going to be like the first time that I was quote unquote introducing her to like my friends and my circles, right?
People that matter to you.
And I think clearly it was my day, but I was very focused on like making sure she was taken care of, accommodated. Like, hey, how are you doing? Coming back every 5-10 minutes, mind you. Who knows how many drinks I had that night?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think at that point it was okay. Yep, I love this woman.
Was it a function of because you were just, for lack of better words, bending over backwards just to make sure she was like that desire to make sure she was good?
Yeah, I think at a certain point, you like the month or so leading up to it, a lot of things I had started to just answer and say, well, I'm going to have to other things. You just got to jump out and, take a leap of faith. Right. And for me, I think I had mentally gotten through a lot of these hurdles and seeing her around a lot of my people and just be able to, move in a room, right? Like,
yeah,
it was sort of like a closure that I needed at that point to say, no, like we're gonna do this. We're gonna make this work.
No, that makes sense. And would you say at that point, you knew you loved her, or you already knew you loved her before, but this was like, I got to marry her?
So it was probably the former, because the latter of, I think at that point in time, I was like, okay, I know I love this woman. Pretty sure I'm going to marry her. But there's still always some things in the back of your mind that you want to check off. Because candidly, at that point, then it became a conversation of, okay, I know you and I are in a relationship, but if we're going to get married, this is a we conversation of a package deal of you and your daughter. So I think that was about a year later after we had started to decide we were going to move in together. I was like, okay, yeah, this is the woman I'm gonna marry.
Got it. And I wanna go back to that at some point, but let's move forward for a little bit. Did you feel like, you kind of said it, but just to be clear, when you had that moment, so you're at your birthday, you're making sure like she's good, you get this like slightly less than aha moment, like I think I love this woman. Were you feeling like you were ready for like marrying her at that time, or to marry her at that time, or was it just like this is it? I don't have the doubts are quenched for the most part.
I think for me it was at that point I knew like she was somebody I would marry, and like that was going to be the focus, and where I was gonna spend my efforts. But I still needed a few things to be, I keep coming back to it, like sort of checked off my list of like, all right, this is the person I think I can build and spend the rest of my life with. But let's see a little bit more first beyond just my emotions, because I have always been someone that I look at marriage as a partnership beyond just the the lovey-dovey, right? Like this is effectively a business to a certain extent.
Yeah, I just wanted. Funny you said that, because I was just about to say there's a business aspect of it, not like transaction, but there's stuff that no one wants to do, or not the fun stuff that they don't show in the movies that you got to handle. And so I'm glad you used that word before I did.
Yeah, no, but like it's real though, especially in like in my experience of I'll come back to package deal is, all right, I'm not just marrying you. Like we have to work out, but I have to fundamentally think about things differently, because now I have to think about providing and being a role model and supporting a kid, and I have no experience in that. So marriage to me was like all of that versus just me and her.
With her, it was that. Got it.
Yeah,
got it. And I definitely want to make sure we spend time on that, because I think that's important. But you made comment related to you're at a point where you're like, I think I love this person, but you were like a month prior, you knew it, but you were still juggling. And I like the fact that you said, I knew she was someone I could marry, or that you would marry. And I think that shows to some degree the evolution of thinking that guys go through. It's like, oh, she's not a jump off. Okay. She's someone I could date. Okay. Then like, okay, I'm taking this person serious now as a partner. And then it's like, I would marry this person. And then there's, I want to marry you, right? Like there's just because someone's categorized as like, I would marry this person doesn't mean that you're set to like you want to. Absolutely. You just like, she checks a lot of those boxes that, all right, you're on this level. And I think sometimes, at least in conversations I have, is like, oh, I check all the boxes. You're in it with me. We're doing these things. Why don't you want to marry? And I don't think women sometimes get the like progression for guys as they think about like, okay, I see enough in you to know like, okay, you are all the things that I want. And we, let's say we work well together, but there's still some things that like will take me over the edge to like make me certain that, or confident that like you are the person that I want to go marry and be like together with forever. Absolutely.
Like, and I think a couple of things, if I wanted to get very concrete, and it goes back to, I think even when I was, bringing her up to my parents for, the first time, because they've been married, 40 plus years at this point. And, I remember my father telling me, make sure that you are not in constant arguments, with someone if you're considering marrying them. See how they are with money and how they manage their finances. Like my mother was telling me things in a similar vein. So I think for me, there was the piece of, okay, I love this woman. And to your point, I think I could marry her, but you still got to go through some experiences to see how that other person is going to react or deal with things that come up when it's money, and how do you guys act around families, and how do you guys like to do things together and travel? Like, because these are all things that may be different than just, me loving somebody, spending time with them, dating. Like, this is stuff that is going to be more prominent if we're going to be together.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more wholeheartedly with you, because I always tell people, and maybe I do it prematurely, but I always tell people you got to see people in their seasons, right? Yep. And season doesn't mean like just good and just bad, but I think there are different dimensions of life that we, encounter that show up, right? Whether it's related to our jobs, whether that's going well or not, or someone's decisions that we make that are life decisions, someone going back to school or not. All these, seeing people through adversity and how they handle it. I think all these show us indicators of what kind of person we're marrying or we're with, to determine, is this the type of, I always think it's like tennis, right? You're a tennis player. It's like, do I want to play doubles with this person, right? Like, this is a person I want to play doubles with.
That's real.
This is a person that I want to go on a like forever road trip with, is the analogy I like to use. And you have to go through some stuff sometimes to really uncover it. It's not going to just pop up through dates, you know?
No, I think on this topic, a really good example of that is the first time we traveled somewhere together out the country is we went to Cuba together. All right. Mind you, neither one of us speak a lick of Spanish, right? So
boys are stretching themselves.
Oh man, you talk about putting yourselves out there in an environment. And overall, we had a great trip, but there were a couple of points, out there where it's internet service isn't necessarily something you can rely on. Figuring out how you're gonna get around, and I remember we went from like one part of the island to another, and we got kind of lost. And like these are things that how are you going to respond? And mind you, it's a social thing and it's fun, but like you can see how a person starts to react.
So you can make and break a trip on those type of moments.
Yeah, and I think that was like, oh, okay, we got through that. Like, this is cool. Like, I can deal with this.
Yeah, no, I think someone told me traveling with someone is, especially like for more than like a weekend, is one of the best ways to get to know people, whether it is a romantic relationship or friends. Because I know some people that say, I got a set of friends I would never travel with.
It's real. That's so real.
You just know how people live, you know, and the way they live, typically like a situation like Cuba that you mentioned, like you guys are dependent on each other. So
exactly.
What they do impacts you now. Not like, oh, I know you live this kind of lifestyle, but there's no effect on me. On these trips, like it impacts you.
Nah, that's why some of the homies, it's like, I'll see you this amount of times a year. Other ones, it's like, I'm only going if he going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, you got those people that, hey, when you plan a trip, you just know, like, all I got to do is say, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. If they say yes, you know, like, you're going to get the money when you ask for it. There ain't going to be no questions. And then you got other people that are going to wait till the last minute. You got to remind them 30 times for the money.
They still stunned
and
on the ground.
And they might not even show. Yeah. And they wonder why they didn't get an invite to the next trip.
Exactly.
Yeah. So no, that's helpful to understand. And so, how did you guys meet? I know you said like, hey, this wasn't planned to be. Well, I'm gonna take that back. Before that one goes. What, like, when you met? Then I asked, how'd y'all meet? When you met, like, what stage of life were you in? Were you just like, hey, and this might be a prelude to the next question, but were you like, hey, I'm just chilling. You know, I'm post NBA life. I'm making really good money. I'm out here. Were you like, hey, it's time to settle down? Like, what stage of life were you in at the time?
I think it was closer to the first one. Like, all right, I'm out here. I'm in new phase, new journey. I was open to like something serious if it presented itself, but that was not a driving force at the time. So it was definitely like, let's see what the dating scene is like.
And what was that? You know, not to take you all the way back to 7+ years ago, but what was that like for the people that are dating now? You know, were you, as you met people, was it, we're just gonna see where this goes? Because, you know, oftentimes as a guy that's single, you know, you'll see people say, or women say, I don't want to waste my time. You know, that's like the key word. That's like the trend of the 2020s and above. Don't waste my time. What was the experience like when, you know, there are people that like, don't want to waste your time. I want someone that's intentional about what they're doing. And then you're telling me, well, at that time, I was just riding the wave, and depending on where the wave went, I might have went. How were your interactions with women, given that was like a kind of standard perspective that women had?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I'm trying to really, it feels like I got to dust off the cobwebs now where, for the most part, I think it was, depending on whomever I was interacting with, it was one or the other, where I also was not someone who, I didn't have a lot of time and energy to be trying to date and socialize with lots of women. So over time, I may have had a couple people I was trying to date or had actively gone on dates with, and that may have been my focus. And then that just didn't necessarily materialize. And then on to the next one. You import, export a little bit.
Hey. You had that post NBA money.
Yeah, right. And but that was also like, I was open to like, if I found somebody that I was vibing with, like, I didn't want where I was, being in Ohio,
impacting that.
Yeah. So
yeah, I gotta broaden my perspective, man. Long distance is hard, but you know, I'm getting older. I gotta just, you know,
it's tricky, but
not let location be a barrier.
Well, see, you're in a major market though, so that's a little different.
Yeah, I am, but there are other markets out there, and if you're not finding what you want in your market, you know, who knows
you got to expand. You got to be a little bit open. I think that was also
scale. I gotta get some scale to my.
but that was also just part of the viewpoint, right? It was like, okay, well, ideally, it's something here, but coming out of B school, you start to assume like, all right, these are going to be the circles and that I'm gonna be around. Which ain't always the case. No.
And as you get older, like I'm getting older, and I'm like, I got to meet more single people because all my friends are married and got little ones running around. So, they used to be like, hey, Chidozi, come out. And now, like, those people are like, hey, we going to the zoo? We going to the aquarium? and it's a different move. There's not a lot of single women going to the zoo and the aquarium.
Nah, they
So
already spoken for, bro.
yeah, so I got to switch it up a bit. But so how did you meet your wife?
Man, so we met on Bumble, on an
Okay,
app,
shout
man,
out to
app
Bumble.
life, right? Shout out to Bumble. They didn't want to pay nothing for the wedding, but we tried.
Did you really?
uh, oh yeah, we definitely like sent the email, or at that point in time, I think they have become so commercialized that it was like, tell us your story.
Oh, got
And
you. They was
man,
looking for
they sent us
marketing
like
examples.
they sent a couple hats, a couple water bottles. I was like, man, maybe we could be the Black Love. They could throw some racks. But yeah, nah. But yeah, so what was funny is at the time, so in my job, I was my manager was effectively like the same age as me, right?
Yeah.
And he said, hey, like I heard that there's this app out there where like if you guys match, like the woman has to reach out to you first. And I was like, what?
He was like, word?
That sounds interesting. Like that can't be a thing, right? And so like about a week or so later, I think I created a profile. Let's see what this dude's talking about. I think I was on there like 2 days, and me and now my wife had matched. And
man. Was your manager invited to the wedding?
Nah, he wasn't. But if he hears this, he'd probably be mad that he wasn't. But yeah, man, she sent me a black emoji. And like what they led to the other, it was like, all right.
Time out. Her intro was a black emoji.
Like a black high emoji. With the hand.
Man, my frustration with women, and this is like not a real one. You'll see on these profiles, I don't want no small talk. I don't want be able to have a conversation. And it's like, especially on Bumble, like their intro game is weak. It'd be like, it'd be like the weakest.
but to her credit, you gotta remember this is some years ago, right? So this is before.
No, I mean I'm speaking of experience now. Like even now, this wasn't personal to your wife. This is now like it'll be like a hand wave. It'll be like eye emojis. It'll be like a hey. I'm just like, where's the dynamic introduction that y'all be expecting from us? And got zero information on their profile. Like I can't even figure out where to start the conversation from because you just had 3 pictures and that was it.
You're gonna have to cut paste what you tried before, man. Oh man.
So y'all met on Bumble. She hit you with the hand emoji. How long were you on there or chatting before you got her number?
Like same evening conversation. Like it was probably.
Oh, bro, you move quick.
Yeah, it was probably like the equivalent of a 30-minute like on the app conversation. In my mind, objective was get the number. Got the number.
That's how I know you old. Like you still like in this you like analog stage where this, you go out in the club with a piece of paper and a pen. Like I got to get these numbers. Like you don't have a cell phone.
So this was around the time where like women would. I come to find out like that's when instead of give you numbers, they'll give you like an IG, and I was like, what,
bro? I decline those. You got to have some respect for yourself.
I was
man.
like, wait, really? That's a thing now?
It's a thing, and I'm like, fellas got to have more respect for themselves, accepting these like Instagram handles instead of phone numbers. Like they go to the same. She looks at the same device when she responds to the DM or the text. Like, if she doesn't want to give you a phone number, she's not interested, bro.
Yeah, like
sorry,
that's
just say no. She's like, you know what? I'm okay. I got respect for myself. I only accept phone numbers. One girl tried to give me her email one day. I was like, you know what? I'm okay. You can keep your email.
Yeah, it's like, wait, nah, I'm okay. I got enough emails.
Yeah, I don't even know how many I got, but I don't need another one.
And I got a lot that's unread. So
you get, bruh, I'm like Red Dot King over here. People get mad. I got like 100,000 unread emails. But so you got a number, and then I'm assuming the conversation was happening in like such a clip that like you felt comfortable that about what you learned about her or how the vibe was to proceed in a 30-minute to an hour period of time.
And so like, okay, it was a little bit of wittiness, and she also just responded to questions, which is like, oh, I actually asked something, she responded, right?
Did she ask questions?
From what I can recall, it was a couple, but
I was like,
nothing like
interview,
crazy deep. Nothing like what are your life's aspirations?
Yeah,
I think I had just got back from like Miami or something, so I think I was telling about that.
Gotcha.
But anyway, got the number. I think the next day we were texting, And then I remember saying, "Hey, so I got something to tell you." And I'm like, "Okay, what's up?"
That's what you
And
said, or she said?
no, this is what she said.
Got you.
And I'm like, "Okay, what's about to happen here?" And she said, "Oh, I have a daughter," and she was being upfront about that to say, "Hey, if that is like honestly not even something that could even remotely like work for you, like I'm just being upfront about it." Right. So first time I had ever heard anything like that.
And what was your response?
Candidly, it was well. I mean, I haven't even met you yet, and it's
Cross that bridge when we get there.
Cross that bridge later, right? Like it's a little cold outside, and you look at it cute in your picture. So.
I keep it real. I want to know more about that, and I feel like I keep pushing it back. But you said like initially you were just kind of thinking, hey, this is just a situation. It's cold. It's wintertime. I'm assuming. Let's see. Let it be what it be, and it turned into something more. Do you think she came in with the same mindset?
Oh, I know for a fact she did.
She did too.
Yes, we were both like mutually aligned in expectations of the season.
So educate me, because I am navigating this landscape that you're in, and I am softening. I'm not all the way thawed out yet, but I'm softening my perspective when it comes to dating women with children, right? And because it's a big responsibility. It's not like something that I would take lightly. It's not like anti that. It's just it's a lot. It's a lot to take on if you're gonna do it right, Yeah. And so, do you see? And you may not have data to prove it, but when I think about women that just would be in alignment to like this is what it is, women with kids are cool with that. I just feel like they wouldn't be like, it's like I'm trying to find somebody serious, and if it's not that, I got all these other responsibilities. So
she is the only woman that I have ever dated that had a kid. So I have N of 1 sample size. However, as you've gotten older, we both probably got a lot of people who ended up dating or talking to people with kids. And honestly, from what I started to sense out is, their time is limited. So
they just need a break and a release.
Then
I need to start swiping right on them. I've been swiping another way.
It's not something that I went in mentally expecting, but then in process you play it out, it's like, oh, I guess that could
make sense. No, it goes against whatever. It feels counterintuitive, but when we think about it, it's like, it does make sense.
You're not taught that part of the game, right? It's not like,
you're not. Yeah,
go look after them.
Yeah, it's like, there's a whole population I haven't tried to serve, But so let's just jump into it. I know we were going to wait a bit, but so how was that experience? So y'all are dating. It is what it is, and before we do that, so. You said y'all had alignment on what it was. Like, how did that happen? Was it just like the same? Was she upfront about it, like she was with the kid, with her child, or was, what prompted your understanding? Like, we're both good with this situation.
So I think it came from, I think first, like we hit it off like really good just from a like first actual phone conversation.
Yeah.
So like. Back to post when she was telling me over like text message that she was a mom. I think we ended up talking on the phone like later that week, and I looked up and I was on the phone like damn near 2 hours, which is like, am I in high school again? Like this never ever happens. All right. Yeah. And then we didn't actually meet in person probably for like another couple of weeks. And like that first date, officially, like we was out and about, like we hit the town, and it was like, oh, okay, like this could work. And so from there, like, I think we had our first 2 dates, like literally like one on a Friday and then impromptu on a Saturday. And over like the next month or two, it was like, oh, okay, this is working. This is vibing. Your free time is effectively in the evenings. And it was effectively unsaid for the first month or so, but then we just kind of got into our rhythm.
You said in the evening, like what we talking about when it's like dinner time? We talking about
Well, because and this is like critical. It was at the time she was like for her last boyfriend, she didn't let him meet her daughter until like they were together for like 6 months. So like I knew that coming in that like that was not something she was trying to do. So cool. That means it's just me and you. Because of that, when does your daughter go to bed? And that's when I would come over, or sort of vice versa if somebody was watching her.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. So let's just jump into it. So how was that? Like, in the sense of, I know like you thought about it for a while. And so like, before I get into like what the thought process was for you leading up to where you are now, I want to change it up and talk to you about, in retrospect, looking back now, like, how has the experience been? Was it like, were some of your concerns as big of concerns as they should have been? Were there some things you've realized like, hey, this is a whole different thing? Because I have some thoughts about it, but I want to hear yours before I share them.
Yeah, I think it's, looking back at it, I feel good about the amount of effort and diligence I put into, like pursuing this and knowing and thinking, could this family unit structure work? Because I also was honest with myself of knowing that there was a whole lot that I don't know. Right.
Yeah.
And so for me, as I look back at it, like the biggest thing for me at the time was, I am someone who is, when I say I'm all in, like that's what I do. Right. So like, connecting the dots a little bit, my parents been together, 40 some years. They're not the most lovey-dovey people in the world. So like, I'm not, which is a whole separate conversation. But like, to me, that shows like, okay, you made a commitment to something, like this is what you do. So I took it very serious of like, okay, if I'm going to be, meeting your daughter and things of that nature, and it's progressive, I don't want to just be some random person that's here for a couple months, and then gone later. So I looked at it like, okay, well, if you are going to do this, you got to jump 2 feet in, on a leap of faith. But like, you got to be willing to accept what comes with it, because that's the only way you're going to know if this is going to work.
Yeah, and I think I have a similar perspective about anything that I do, even if it's like a relationship, right? Like if I'm gonna make the decision and ask, like, hey, I want to be together with you. To me, like, there's a way that I want you handled, and I want to handle you and treat you and care that I want to show. So, not saying like I'm looking for it not to work out, but if it doesn't work out, like I don't ever want someone to say anything negative, right? Like I want there to be like a brand, like, hey, you can go back however many people and like he always care, like show this level of care, right? And so I take that seriously. And also I'm one of those people, like, for example, like if I sign up for a project and we, you got meetings and stuff, I'm gonna be thinking about that thing outside of the meeting time. Like it's subconsciously, because my name is on it. I know myself to know there's going to be a lot more mental capacity dedicated to it, whether I want it or not. Yeah, and that same mindset goes to a woman. When I'm like mentally engaged, I'm like, it's not just about the time we spend together. I'm actively thinking about ways that can make you happy, things that you're concerned about. I'm thinking about how to like help and all those things. And so to me, it's like a big burden not burden. That's not the great word. That's not the best word. It's a big commitment. Yeah. To say like, it's hey,
responsibility.
Yeah, it's a big responsibility to say, hey, I'm going to do it. I want to do this, and you want to do it to the level that you hold yourself accountable for.
Exactly.
I think is the key there. Not like, oh, I want to do this, make sure I do right, but we all have like standards that we have for ourselves, and I hold people around me that I'm close with to a high standard, and I try to hold myself to a higher standard. Sometimes we're our own worst enemy or worst critic. And so I'm coming at it with that regard, And so sometimes I don't want to like jump into something if I don't know mentally I'm ready to hold myself to that level of accountability, given the responsibilities that are required, the commitment that's required. And not commitment from like I'm not talking to other people, but just like what it takes to really show up the right way, commitment.
Yeah. It's one thing to say, okay, I'm going to do this. And it's another thing to actually execute. It's like strategy versus execution, right? It's
like, consistently.
Where's the work?
Yeah, exactly.
More than just words.
Yeah, definitely. And so, yeah, so I know I'm going to tell you what I think, and then you give me your response as someone that, like, my hesitancies, and then you give me your response as someone that's in it, right? Like, my biggest thing, if you meet someone that just had a kid or recently had a kid, it's like, man, this kid is still young and requires so much. How do you have time to, like, show up the way you may need someone to show up for you in a relationship? Because that kid, in some ways, is like is helpless, right? It's still needy, not self-sufficient. And then if you have someone that's like, well, I'm gonna do older, and they're like in high school, then I'm like, shoot, I just met you and we moving forward, but like in 2 years, I'm gonna have to pay for college, You're like, I don't know if I'm ready to pay for college.
These are thoughts on my mind, bro.
Yeah, so I don't think that. Yeah, it's good that you thought about. I'm not tripping with these things. And so, how do you rationalize those things, or like say, hey, at the end of the day, like these things are not that important?
So I think, one, it's not easy, right? And everybody's going to have their own approach and process. I think first is, like, in my experience, it was, okay, I care about this woman, like, as a person, as an individual. And honestly, I'm seeing how she's not expecting and asking me to step in right now to, effectively be a father figure, right? She's like, I kind of got this. Now, not to the sense of like, I'm so independent that I don't need anything, but it's like, no, like, we are dating, like, we are trying to figure each other out. I also just happen to have a kid. So I think in that case, like, the first thing I look for is just someone that is willing to, effectively separate the two so that you two can focus on each other. Because you just have to play that out whenever you get married, as I have come to learn. It's like, like your partner or your spouse comes first, and then you deal with the kids. So that's first. Second, I would say I was very fortunate in the timing where I was involved, where my now stepdaughter was like 9 at the time. So effectively self-sufficient to some things, right? Like, you're not, she has her own ideas. She can do her own things. Like, you're not changing diapers. So that's a whole different world. So I think I kind of hit the sweet spot where it's like, okay, young enough to still be, impressionable. Not too old where it's like, first off, who is you coming in my house?
You're not my daddy. That's probably the biggest fear I have. Some kid to be like, you're not my daddy. And I'm like,
and
whoa.
So, but even to that point though, like, the third thing for me, because that was a huge component of like, okay, I do not want to deal with like baby father drama in any way, shape, or form. And fortunately for me, but unfortunate for the situation, like, he is not in my stepdaughter's life, and hasn't been since I was around. So it effectively was just me and my now wife. So I didn't have to deal with additional drama or just personalities or opinions. For that. In
terms of what you guys are doing and what that person as like a biological parent wants as well. Definitely.
Like, I don't understand that, but I also candidly benefited from that in terms of where we are today.
Yeah, I get that. And something you said I guess resonated with me, or not resonated, but made me think about things a little bit differently, because you said she focused on, she was like woman first before mother. So she focused on like y'all before like the kid aspect was kind of brought into it. And I did date someone long distance before, like recently. And that person also had a child. And to me, I was a little bit taken back. And now that I think about it more from my own expectations, that I thought like if I was a woman dating, I would think that I would like bring up that I knew she had a kid, so it wasn't like a secret. Like try to understand like what my thoughts on, related to that sooner. Because like that was just my thought. But like she never really brought that up yet. And now that you say that, I'm like, maybe she didn't, because she's like, I just want to focus on us as us first before I introduce that component into it. So it's interesting. I never thought about it that way.
It's probably a combination of that versus like trying to potentially give you, the time and space you need to potentially come around to what that could entail. And I think we had to go through the same thing of like, all right, well, if you were to talk to her, she would say, it took me a long time before we were officially an item. The what are we doing question came around.
Do you think that was primarily because she had a child, and so she was happy with the runtime?
I think she on her end was a little mad at how long it took because it was like, hey man, what's up?
Got it.
Like, yo, we've been doing this for a while. Like, what's going on here?
Did she ask you what are we doing?
She did.
Terrible question, but I get it.
Yeah, she did at a very an interesting time, but it was unexpected.
Why you say that?
She gonna kill me. We were out and about, and basically it was like 4 hours into us socializing, and it was like,
lit.
Wait, we already been out at dinner and everything, and now like, oh, now you would ask me this? Like, it's loud in here. It's a whole lot going on. Like, I was off of whatever at that point in time. So,
I've been there before.
Now, but in retrospect, I knew that was going to come up, and in my mind, at that point in time, I had already gotten to the point of like, I vibe with you, I like you, and I had to. That's when I started to have to force myself to process, like, oh, like now I have to truly think about potentially being a stepfather, what that starts to mean. Like before that, it was not the case. So that's why I was dragging my feet a little bit, because I was trying to sort that out. And
I think that's important. Like, I like this person I was dating, like she was great. Timing and COVID kind of like messed it up, especially with distance. But like that was something I started to think about, and I feel like when you're not thinking about it, and then like you're thrusted in that environment, it's like it takes a while to like think about how you want to handle it, right? And one of the things that I think about, and you could tell me if this matters or not, is like I pledged, right? I'm alpha. I pledged, and I can imagine like if someone asked me to pledge again, I would never do it again, right? But if someone asked me to do it again, actually they did ask me. I was halfway. I pledged solo, right? Two guys dropped. Short story. 2 guys dropped, and like 5 weeks in, them terrorizing me, and I think they felt bad for me. So they're like, "Hey, man, we get it. If you want to like start over, if you want to wait till like next year and we got some more guys." I'm like, you want me to start over? Like what?
Yeah, nah, bro.
But imagine me starting over. They doing some crazy shit. I'm like, I didn't know what's gonna happen. Like like the experience is different once I've gone through it.
Yes.
And so I think about that with intimacy, right? Like a woman going through a pregnancy the first time, and all the things that she's learning about herself and could be scared for. Where, I guess, for lack of better words, creates the opportunity for you to show up for her, and creates a level of closeness. She's done already, right? And so if you have it on the next go round, it's some missed opportunities there where y'all like uniquely could be close or connected where you're not. It's like, I don't know if you've ever thought about it that way, or if that even matters in the grand scheme of things.
So I mean, I haven't thought about it that way. I think if I did, you start to look at it more from like the benefits perspective, right? Like, so if you think about probably a lot of our general or broader friend groups, it's like everybody's going through like first kids for the most part, right? Like they trying to figure all of this out. Like I got somebody that I can already ask about some of these
things. Touche. That's a good
process
way to look at it.
It's like it starts to materialize differently of like, oh, like that's important. That's not like, this is the type of crib you go get. These are the type, like, so in operations, it's like it has its benefits. Now I get your point of like, oh, like we won't be experiencing this first thing specifically together. But on the flip side, like there's still no shortage of first things that we've done together and will continue to do together as well.
True. No, I mean, that's good to hear. I don't know that maybe I just bank on like the negative a lot. I never thought about it that way. But that makes sense. And there's value to that. I've always thought about like, we're just missing out on this level of connectivity that, this is my only time to get, you only do this first time once. But to your point, you do expedite some of the learnings and mistakes that you might make because they've already done it. So I get it.
Like when we fortunate enough to get there, I'm gonna be like, okay, I'm having a bad night. What do I do with this?
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember. I think probably the last time we saw each other, and we were out. It was at Ann Arbor. It was in Michigan, and we were just chopping it up. It probably been like a year or like 6 months since we've seen each other since then or before then. And you're like, man, I met this lady, this young lady, and I'm trying to see what's up with her, but she has a kid. And it's like you was asking me, like, what should I do? And I'm gonna let you tell the people what I said. But this is a plug because I started my my coaching business. I'm certified life coach, but I also do, because of the podcast, people hit me up with a lot of questions. So I also do like relationship call, like support. It's called relationship support and dating support, and then some other executional stuff, right? But like some people like look at me funny, like, you're single, kind of dating relationship advice are you giving? I was like, it's not advice, it's support. And my thought process is, yeah, we got a testimony here before I really launched. This is where I was getting some of the practice from. But my plug is, I don't really like try to tell you what to go do. I try to like broaden people's perspectives in terms of like how they're thinking about it, to then say, hey, I thought I might have this or that choice. Now I have A, B, and C. Let me figure out which one makes the most sense given this different perspective. And so you can tell me what you thought. Tell the people what I said and then how that impacted.
Yeah, man.
You guys moving forward.
I remember that quite vividly. So it was like me, you, one or two of the other homies. We was at the bar.
It was like a bar.
Yeah. It wasn't like extra late at night. So it was like, loose lubrication. Not
yeah, we wasn't like lit or nothing.
Yeah,
just good chop it up time.
Just give you the life updates, and as you already said, it's like, hey, dating this woman, like, really like her, but like she's got a kid, and I'm like, man, I don't know what to do. I never really thought about this. This is the first. Like, I'm gonna have to. What does this mean to be a potential father type figure? Blah blah blah. And I remember like the pivotal thing you said to me is like, so first, have you met her kid yet? And I'm like, no. And then you also said, well, honestly, you should probably, try to meet the kid to see how you two interact with each other, because if y'all interact with each other in a, good and positive way, it'll probably ease a lot of your concerns. Or if you don't, then you'll quickly know, like, hey, this is not something you up for. And I was like, oh, I had never actually, thought about that. I had kind of just been delaying, that conversation.
Yeah.
And then I want to say, literally, within like a week of me being back in town, she recommended it because I think she had the same conversation with one of her friends. And like 2 weeks later, I'm nervous as hell going to a park to meet a 9-year-old girl at the time, like on swings and stuff. And I'm like, oh, what do I say? What do I do?
Yeah.
And I can't even remember exactly what it was, but I was like, gosh, I'm so nervous right now. Like, what do you do? But it turned out being great. Like, she was fine. She was cool. I think later that weekend, it was the first time I was like at their place, and I was playing Connect 4 with her, and then she was busting my ass, and then I had to start busting her ass. So it was like we started vibing. But yeah, man, I had never thought about, okay, I'm thinking only of just, how me and, my now wife are going to be together. I had never thought about, what is the potential relationship going to be with this third party? And will you two vibe together? And the easiest way to do that is to try to meet. So thank you for that.
Just do it.
Very much, man. Like, it was like, oh, okay. Everything got a lot clearer after that.
After you met her, in terms of your perspective for how you want to move forward?
Yes. And that was probably kind of like when we started the conversation, like, when did I know I was like in love? This was probably like a month or so before that.
Gotcha.
That was probably like that last thing of like, oh, okay, this is cool. Like, sign me up.
Got it. So listen, people, if you want similar perspective changing, guidance, hit me up. www.nelloeffect, NELO effect.com. let's chat. Let's partner together on the perspective. Let me help you get to your clearer thoughts. As Courtney said, we here,
I wish I knew exactly what you had been drinking that night. So I'd be like, well, was that
I went,
Chidozi or was that particular?
it was early. Like you said, it was early that night. It wasn't even late. But that's what I, at least the people that I've worked with so far, that's essentially what I do. Like, I'm not here to say, go do this or this is right. But I think we tend, because of our fears, our concerns, see the world in like a limited view when it comes to relationships. And sometimes we can't see someone else's perspective, and so I just try to bring in that, given like things I've learned, things I've experienced, and say, hey, have you considered, I think most of the conversation was me asking you questions, actually.
Yeah.
And then say, hey, you may want to consider this and this and that. This is what I'm hearing you say, yada, yada, yada. And people take it. And I promise you all of the feedback. And these have been like conversations that have been like 30 minutes or less, right? Have been like very positive, like feedback. People come back, oh man, I thought about what you said. I did this and this. You may not get the response you want from like a positive or negative, but I think the resounding feedback I've gotten was like, it brought clarity to like what I need to go do next instead of like stressing about it, And that's all I can do. That's all where I'm at in life. That's all I can help you do is have clarity. I can't, I can't tell you how to do anything else.
Hey,
you got to listen to the podcast for that.
The older you get, you start to realize that clarity is like, it's priceless.
Yo, and I'm just going to leave it right there. You heard it first. Clarity is priceless. Check out Nello Effect. Will help you get some clarity in your life. But in addition to that, we're also out of time for today. Courtney, I appreciate you. I got to make sure I bring you back because there's still a ton of things that we need to talk about that we didn't get to. So if you enjoyed this episode, if you want Courtney to come back, make sure you subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you share this episode with a friend. Make sure you follow on Instagram at ThinkLoveWife. Leave a review. Send me a DM with your thoughts and your feedback. And, until next time, I hope the conversation keeps going.